Here are Grandma's 29 plus Dust Bowl recipes to try today. Cornbread. Cornbread was a Dust Bowl essential due to its simplicity and heartiness, and is one of Grandma's favorite dishes to make. Combine 1 cup of cornmeal, 1 cup of flour, 1/4 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and a pinch of salt in a bowl. In another, whisk 1 cup of milk, 1 egg, and 1/4 cup of melted lard or shortening. Mix everything together. Pour into a greased skillet and bake at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. Cornmeal's coarse texture and long shelf life made it a survival essential, offering a filling side dish or meal base. Hoover stew. Hoover stew was a resourceful dish born from necessity. Boil 2 cups of macaroni in salted water until tender, then drain. In a large pot, combine 1 can of diced tomatoes, 1 can of mixed vegetables, and 1 cup of sliced hot dogs. Add the cooked macaroni, stir and heat until warm through. The mix of cheap, shelf-stable ingredients created a filling, economical meal. This simple recipe fed families during hard times, stretching limited supplies into something comforting and hearty. Potato soup. Potato soup is comfort food that requires only a few ingredients. Peel and dice 4 medium potatoes and boil them in salted water until soft. Drain most of the water, leaving about 1 cup. Mash the potatoes lightly, then stir in 2 cups of milk, 1 tablespoon of butter, and salt and pepper to taste. The starch from the potatoes thickens the soup naturally, creating a creamy texture. It's a nourishing, affordable dish that made the most of pantry staples during the Dust Bowl. Carrot marmalade. Carrot marmalade brought sweetness to scarce times. Grate 2 cups of carrots and simmer them with 2 cups of water until tender. Add the juice and zest of 1 lemon, 1 orange, and 2 cups of sugar. Cook over medium heat, stirring until the mixture thickens to a jam-like consistency. The natural pectin in citrus helps the marmalade set without added thickeners. Spread it on bread or biscuits for a simple treat that turned humble ingredients into a bright, flavorful preserve. Bread pudding. Bread pudding made stale bread into a cherished dessert. Tear 4 slices of stale bread into small pieces and place them in a greased baking dish. In a bowl, mix 2 cups of milk, 2 beaten eggs, 1/2 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and a dash of vanilla. Pour the mixture over the bread and let it soak for 10 minutes. Bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. This creative dish turned leftovers into a warm, comforting treat. Fried dough. Fried dough was a comforting and easy treat during lean times. Combine 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a pinch of salt, and enough water to form a pliable dough. Roll out the dough, cut it into small pieces, and fry in hot oil until golden and puffy. The heat activates the baking powder, giving the dough a light, airy texture. Sprinkle with sugar or serve with syrup. A simple way to turn basic pantry items into a special snack. Jackrabbit stew. Jackrabbit stew transformed wild game into a hearty dish. Brown rabbit pieces in a pot, then add chopped onions, potatoes, carrots, and enough water to cover. Simmer for 2 hours with salt, pepper, and any herbs available. The slow cooking tenderizes the meat, while the vegetables thicken the broth naturally. This filling stew made the most of what was available. A single jackrabbit could feed an entire family, stretching resources while providing a warm, nourishing meal. Potato pancakes. Potato pancakes made the most of leftover potatoes. Grate 4 medium potatoes, squeeze out the moisture, and mix with 1 beaten egg, 2 tablespoons of flour, and a pinch of salt. Heat oil in a pan and fry spoonfuls of the mixture until golden and crisp. The potato starch helps bind the mixture together, creating a pancake that's crispy on the outside and soft inside. These savory cakes were a budget-friendly, satisfying meal or side dish for families with limited ingredients. Wild onion soup. Wild onion soup turned foraged ingredients into a flavorful dish. Sauté 1 cup of chopped wild onions in butter until fragrant. Then add 4 cups of water or broth and 1 diced potato. Simmer for 20 minutes, blending part of the soup if desired for a creamier texture. Wild onions added nutrients and a sharp, aromatic taste. This soup was an example of creative cooking, turning the simplest of finds into a hearty, warming meal that nourished both body and spirit. Fried cornmeal mush. Fried cornmeal mush was a Dust Bowl classic for its versatility. Cook 1 cup of cornmeal with 4 cups of water and a pinch of salt until thick. Pour into a loaf pan to cool and firm up, then slice and fry in oil until crispy on the edges. The natural starch in cornmeal holds the slices together for frying. Serve with syrup for sweetness or eat it plain. A single batch of mush could be repurposed into several meals, making it invaluable during hard times. Depression bread. Depression bread was a symbol of resourcefulness that was often made by Grandma. Combine 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder in a bowl. Gradually add 1 cup of water, mixing until a sticky dough forms. Knead briefly, shape into a loaf, and bake at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 minutes. The baking powder creates bubbles, making the bread rise slightly despite the absence of yeast. It was a simple, quick recipe to produce a filling and reliable staple: boiled carrots with lard. Grandma's boiled carrots with lard were a rich yet simple side dish. Peel and slice 4 medium carrots, then boil them in salted water until tender. Drain, then toss with 1 tablespoon of melted lard and a pinch of salt. The lard adds flavor and coats the carrots, locking in their natural sweetness while adding calories, which were vital during hard times. Dandelion green salad. Dandelion greens turned foraged food into a fresh dish. Wash 2 cups of dandelion greens thoroughly, then toss with a dressing made of 1 tablespoon of vinegar, 1 tablespoon of oil, and a pinch of salt. The bitterness of the greens balances beautifully with the tangy dressing. Dandelions are rich in vitamins and minerals, making this a nutrient-dense meal. Served raw, the greens preserved their nutrients and brought a burst of flavor and color to meals in the Dust Bowl era. Bean soup. Bean soup was a Dust Bowl favorite for its simplicity and sustenance. Combine 2 cups of cooked beans, 4 cups of water, 1 chopped onion, and salt to taste in a pot. Simmer for 30 minutes, mashing some of the beans for a thicker texture. Beans are packed with protein and fiber, making this a hearty meal. This soup was inexpensive, filling, and could be made with a variety of beans, depending on what was available, to keep families fed and full. Prune pudding. Prune pudding transformed dried fruit into a sweet treat. Simmer 1 cup of prunes in 2 cups of water until soft, then mash lightly. Add 1/4 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoon of flour, and a pinch of cinnamon, cooking until thickened. The natural sugars and pectin in prunes help create a creamy texture without the need for eggs or milk. This pudding offered a hint of luxury and sweetness, proving even basic ingredients could make a memorable dessert. Grits with bacon drippings. Grits were a staple meal during the Depression, and bacon drippings made them rich and flavorful. Bring 4 cups of water to a boil. Stir in 1 cup of grits and cook until thick, stirring occasionally. Add 1 tablespoon of bacon drippings for flavor and a creamy texture. The fat enhances the corn's natural taste and provides needed calories. Serve warm as a hearty breakfast or side dish. This simple recipe turned pantry staples into a filling, comforting meal. Mock apple pie. Mock apple pie was a clever way to recreate a favorite dessert without apples. Crush 20 saltine crackers and layer them in a pie crust. In a saucepan, boil 2 cups of water, 1 cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar, and the juice of 1 lemon. Pour this mixture over the crackers. Add a sprinkle of cinnamon and top with another crust. Bake at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. The cream of tartar mimics the tartness of apples, creating a surprisingly realistic flavor. Milk gravy soup. Milk gravy soup was a Depression-era innovation to stretch milk. Heat 2 tablespoons of lard or butter in a pot, stir in 2 tablespoons of flour, and cook until lightly browned. Gradually, whisk in 4 cups of milk and bring to a simmer, seasoning with salt and pepper. The roux thickens the soup, turning milk into a filling dish. Served with bread or potatoes, this simple recipe provided warmth and sustenance for families facing limited resources. Sour milk biscuits. Sour milk biscuits made use of milk that had started to spoil. Mix 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of salt, and 3/4 of a cup of sour milk to form a soft dough. Roll out, cut into rounds, and bake at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 to 12 minutes. The baking soda reacts with the acidity in the milk, creating fluffy biscuits. These quick, inexpensive biscuits were a versatile addition to meals. Scrambled eggs with wild greens. Scrambled eggs with wild greens combine foraged food with simple staples. Sauté 1 cup of washed and chopped wild greens in butter until wilted. Beat 4 eggs with a pinch of salt and pour into the pan, stirring gently until cooked through. The greens add nutrients and flavor to the eggs, transforming a basic dish into something hearty. Flour and water hardtack. Hardtack was a survival staple known for its long shelf life. Mix 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of water, and a pinch of salt to form a stiff dough. Roll it out, cut into squares, and poke holes with a fork. Bake at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes, then flip and bake another 30 minutes. The lack of moisture and fat in hardtack made it durable and non-perishable, providing a reliable, portable source of sustenance during tough times. Molasses cookies. Molasses cookies were a sweet treat made from pantry staples. Cream together 1/2 cup of lard and 1/2 cup of molasses, then mix in 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and a pinch of cinnamon. Roll into small balls, flatten, and bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes. Molasses acted as a sweetener and kept the cookies moist longer. These cookies were a rare indulgence, offering families a comforting taste of sweetness despite scarce resources. Fried salt pork. Fried salt pork was a flavorful way to stretch a small piece of meat. Slice the pork thinly and soak it in water for 30 minutes to reduce the saltiness. Heat a skillet and fry the slices until crisp, reserving the rendered fat for other uses. The curing process preserved the pork and intensified its flavor. Served with bread or potatoes, it added richness and protein to otherwise simple meals, making it a valuable ingredient in lean times. Cabbage soup. Cabbage soup was a filling dish made with simple ingredients. Chop 1 head of cabbage and simmer it in 4 cups of water with 1 chopped onion, 1 carrot, and a pinch of salt. Cook until the vegetables are tender, about 30 minutes. The natural sweetness of cabbage emerges as it cooks, creating a hearty, satisfying flavor. Roasted barley coffee. Roasted barley coffee was a caffeine-free alternative during shortages. Spread 1 cup of barley on a baking sheet and roast at 400 degrees Fahrenheit until dark brown. Grind the roasted barley and brew it like regular coffee, using 1 tablespoon per cup of water. Roasting releases the barley's natural oils and sugars, creating a rich, nutty flavor. This drink provided a warm, satisfying option when coffee beans were too expensive or unavailable, becoming a staple in many households. Cornmeal dumplings. Cornmeal dumplings were a hearty addition to soups and stews. Combine 1 cup of cornmeal, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a pinch of salt, and enough water to form a thick dough. Drop spoonfuls into simmering broth and cook for 15 minutes, ensuring they puff up. The baking powder reacts with heat to create fluffy dumplings that absorb the soup's flavors. Wild greens soup. Wild greens soup used foraged ingredients for a nutrient-packed meal. Gather 2 cups of wild greens like dandelion or nettles, Wash them well and sauté in butter until softened. Add 4 cups of water or broth, 1 diced potato, and salt to taste. Simmer for 20 minutes, blending part of the soup for a creamy texture. Wild greens were rich in vitamins and minerals, offering a nutritious base for meals when other fresh produce was unavailable. This soup provided warmth and sustenance. Homemade noodles. Homemade noodles turned flour and eggs into a versatile meal base. Mix 2 cups of flour with 2 beaten eggs and a pinch of salt to form a stiff dough. Roll out thinly, cut into strips, and let them dry slightly before cooking. Boil in salted water or add directly to soup. The eggs add protein, while the flour provides structure. Noodles were an economical way to bulk up soups or serve as a standalone dish, with simple toppings like butter or gravy. Water pie. Water pie was an ingenious dessert created during hard times. Pour 1 1/2 cups of water into a pie crust, then mix in 4 tablespoons of flour, 1 cup of sugar, and a teaspoon of vanilla. Dot with butter and bake at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 35 minutes. The flour thickens the water as it cooks, creating a custard-like filling. Despite its humble ingredients, this pie offered a touch of sweetness and comfort, showing how creativity could make even the simplest items feel special. Boiled cabbage. Boiled cabbage was a staple side dish made by Grandma during the Dust Bowl era. Chop 1 head of cabbage into wedges and boil in salted water for 10 to 15 minutes, or until tender. Drain and toss with a pat of butter, adding salt and pepper to taste. Boiling softens the cabbage's texture and brings out its natural sweetness. This simple preparation was both nutritious and easy, pairing well with other basic meals. Turnip hash. Turnip hash turned root vegetables into a satisfying dish. Dice 2 medium turnips, 1 potato, and 1 onion, and sauté them in a skillet with 2 tablespoons of lard. Cook over medium heat, stirring occasionally until golden and tender, about 20 minutes. The starch from the potato binds the mixture, while the lard adds flavor and richness. Turnips were easy to store and grow, making them an accessible ingredient. Serve this hash as a hearty meal or side dish. Lard sandwiches. Lard sandwiches were a simple yet calorie-dense meal. Spread a thin layer of lard on a slice of bread, then sprinkle with a pinch of salt or sugar, depending on preference. The lard provided much-needed fats, which were vital for energy during hard times. Bread acted as the perfect vehicle to make the meal portable. Corned beef luncheon salad. Corned beef luncheon salad turned a canned staple into a cold dish. Flake 1 can of corned beef into a bowl and mix with 1 chopped onion, 2 diced pickles, and a spoonful of mayonnaise. The acidity of the pickles balanced the richness of the beef, while the mayo bound the ingredients together. Served with crackers or bread, it was a versatile meal option. This salad offered a convenient way to stretch a small amount of meat into a shared dish. For more contents like this, click here to subscribe.